Here we have a very interesting geometry problem. A square just fits inside a circle. What percentage of the circle is occupied by the square? Now let's start by first defining some key terms. The first being the diameter of the circle, which we can define as being 2 times the radius. So we can call that 2r. And we also have to take into account the side lengths of the square, which will help us find the area of the square. Let's define this as x being the side length of the square. And now there is a relationship between the diameter of the circle and the square, being that the diagonal of the square is equal to the diameter. And we can actually calculate what the diagonal of the square is by using a very famous formula called the Pythagorean theorem, which says that a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, where c is the hypotenuse and a and b are the adjacent and opposite sides. We know what the adjacent and opposite sides are, they're just x and x. So let's rewrite this out. So the formula for the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So a is equal to x squared, plus b is equal to x, so another x squared, is equal to c. C is the diameter of the circle or the diagonal of the square. And we know what the diameter of the circle is, we've already defined it as being 2r. So we can just write that there, but of course we have to square this because c squared. Now we can simplify this out. X squared plus x squared, that's just 2 times x squared. So x squared, the coefficient being 2, is equal to 2r times 2r, so 2 squared is 4r, squared is r squared. And let's simplify this further. Let's try to get x in terms of r. Let's try and find the side length of the square so we can calculate the area of the square. So divide both sides by 2. This will cancel out with this, leaving us with just 2r squared being equal to x squared. And to find x, we have to take the square root of both sides. So x squared, take the square root, is just x, is equal to root 2, the square root of 2 is root 2, and r, the square root of r squared, is r. And now we have a definition for x, and we can actually solve for this question. The percentage of a circle occupied by the square. To find that, you have to find the area of the square and divide it by the area of the circle. Now we have the side length of the square, and the area for the square is defined as being the side length squared. And we know what the side length is, it's root 2 times r. So root 2 times r, square that to get the area of the square, over, we already know what the area for the circle is, it's pi r squared. Pi r squared. Simplifying this out further, root 2 squared is equal to 2, the square root and the square cancel out. So we get 2r squared is r squared, divide that by pi r squared. And there is a common factor between these two, the numerator and the denominator, which is r squared. So we can actually cancel that out, leaving us with 2 over pi. And if we bring this up onto our calculator, 2 divided by pi, right over here, we get 0.6366, yeah, I'm not going to go over that. So we have to times this by 100 to get the percentage, and rounding that to 0 decimal places, that is 64%, and depending if the question states that you have to round it to 0 decimal places, which in this case it doesn't, but we're just going to do it for the purposes of this experiment, the answer to this question is 64%. I hope you learned something in today's video. See you next time.